There comes a moment in every person's life when silence hits them harder than someone's words ever could. A moment when you look at the world around you, or at the people around you, or at the way you've been carrying yourself, and something inside you finally snaps. Not with a noise, not with anger, not with a dramatic outburst, but with a quiet realization that you don't need to keep explaining yourself to people who made up their mind long before you opened your mouth. We live in a world obsessed with noise, obsessed with being heard, obsessed with proving, defending, arguing, convincing. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone wants to have the last word. But the Stoics understood something the modern world forgot. The more noise you make, the less power you hold. The more you try to prove your intentions to someone who decided not to understand you, the more you sink into their psychological quicksand. And the more you chase attention, validation, or closure, the more you reveal that you have none of those things inside yourself. That's the trap almost everyone falls into. Someone hurts you, and you rush to explain your pain. Someone ignores you, and you chase their attention. Someone misjudges you, and you fight to correct their perception. Someone walks away, and you run after them with a heart full of reasons they never asked for. You keep talking, thinking that if you express yourself just right, if you find the perfect sentence, the perfect explanation, the perfect emotional confession, something inside them will click. It never does, and it never will, because explanations don't change minds that were already closed. Words don't open ears that were already shut. Chasing doesn't create value in people who never valued you. And begging doesn't bring closure from people who benefit from keeping you confused. The harsh reality is this: the people who genuinely care about you don't need paragraphs. They need presence. And the people who don't care won't read your paragraphs anyway. The moment you truly let that sink in, you stop wasting your words on those who were never listening. You stop bleeding emotions in front of people who feed off your vulnerability. And you stop explaining yourself to people who wouldn't understand you even if you drew them a map. That's when you start to understand the true power of Stoic silence. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of repression, but the silence of strength. The silence of someone who trusts himself deeply enough that he doesn't need external confirmation to validate his truth. Because once you master that kind of silence, you become someone the world cannot push, cannot manipulate, cannot guilt, and cannot control. You've probably noticed this pattern in your own life. The moment someone disrespects you, your heart flares up and your mind scrambles for words. Maybe you write a long message trying to explain what hurt you. Maybe you try to remind them of everything you did. Maybe you try to fix a fracture that they created. But something strange happens. The more you talk, the smaller you feel. You send that long message, and instead of relief, you feel exposed. You chase their response, and instead of clarity, you feel hollow. You pour your heart out, and instead of connection, you feel embarrassed. Because deep down, you know you surrendered your power to someone who didn't deserve it. You made them the judge of your emotions. The Stoics would call this placing your peace in the hands of another. And the moment you do that, you're no longer free. The Stoics had a different approach. Marcus Aurelius didn't chase explanations. Epictetus didn't plead for understanding. Seneca didn't pour his soul into someone who didn't value him. They kept their peace by controlling the only thing they ever had real authority over, themselves, not others. not their opinions, not their reactions, themselves. And that's why silence, in the Stoic sense, is so powerful. It's not the silence of suppression, it's the silence of sovereignty. When you go silent, you do something incredibly rare in a world of overreaction. You pull your energy back. You stop feeding the emotional parasites who live off your attention. You stop giving endless second chances to people who shouldn't have gotten the first. You stop entangling yourself with people who treat your worth like an optional accessory instead of a non-negotiable truth. And you start giving yourself the respect you kept begging others for. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is reclamation. It is you returning home to yourself after spending too much time trying to be understood in places where understanding was never possible. That's why silence scares people. They're used to you reacting. They're used to you explaining. They're used to you chasing. They're used to your emotional availability. When you stop doing that, when you go quiet instead of loud, they lose access to your energy. And people hate losing access to what they took for granted. They get uncomfortable. They get confused. They get agitated. They start replaying conversations in their mind. They start wondering if they pushed too far. They start questioning why you suddenly stopped. Silence forces them to face themselves, something most people avoid at all costs. And here's the beauty of it. Silence isn't just a message to others. Silence is a mirror for you. When you stop reacting, you start hearing your own mind again. And your mind begins to tell you things you didn't want to admit before. It whispers the truth you drowned under distractions. It tells you, you gave too much. You tried too hard. You hoped too blindly. You stayed too long. You trusted too easily. You explained when you should have walked away. That's what silence reveals. Not because silence is punishment, but because silence is clarity. And clarity is the foundation of discipline, self-respect, and emotional strength. Now here's something most people don't realize. Closure is a myth. It's not something they give you. It's something you give yourself the moment you stop asking for explanations that won't heal you. And silence is the doorway to closure. Because closure is nothing more than acceptance. And acceptance only arrives when you remove yourself from the noise long enough to see the truth without filters. When you finally realize the conversation you're waiting for won't fix anything. When you stop trying to get someone else to repair the damage they caused. When you internalize that, no explanation will ever change who they are. And when you understand that your healing starts the moment you stop asking for something they never intended to give. Silence is that line, that boundary, that shift. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about yourself to keep breaking in the same place. And that brings us to the next truth. Silence reveals who is real and who never was. Stop texting someone and see who texts you first. Stop explaining yourself and see who respects your decision. Stop giving and watch who disappears. Stop reacting and see who loses interest. Stop chasing and see who shows up. Silence is the great filter. It separates the ones who value you from the ones who valued your attention. It exposes the people who were only there because you kept reaching out. It shows you the difference between someone who truly cares and someone who cares only when you feed their ego. Silence exposes the truth in a way words never can. And here's something powerful. Not explaining yourself is the highest form of confidence. We've been conditioned to think that good people explain, good people justify, good people make sure no one misunderstands them. but that's emotional slavery disguised as virtue. You don't need to defend your character to people committed to misreading you. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who benefited from you having none. You don't need to justify your distance to people who created it. You don't need to rationalize your silence to people who disrespected your voice. Stoic confidence is when you know your intentions are clean, your actions aligned, and your conscience clear. And that's enough. You don't overexplain because you don't owe explanations. And you don't defend yourself because you're not on trial. That's the kind of energy that makes people pay attention without you saying a word. Silence is also the greatest teacher. Because while you're quiet, something deep happens. People start hearing their own conscience. The ones who wronged you feel the guilt they tried to avoid. The ones who manipulated you feel the discomfort they thought they escaped. The ones who thought you'd always be there realize you're not. The ones who walked away expecting you to chase start panicking when you don't. Because silence is unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. You become unreadable. And when people can't predict you, they can't control you. And here's the truth you already know, but rarely admit. People don't learn from your words. They learn from your distance. They don't change when you tell them to respect you. They change when they lose access to you. They don't wake up when you complain. They wake up when your silence replaces your explanations. Silence is not revenge. Silence is evidence that you finally understand your worth. Silence is choosing peace over proving. Silence is choosing dignity over drama. Silence is choosing self-respect over self-betrayal. And the deeper you go into silence, the more you discover something life-changing. Most people were in your life because you kept making room for them. They weren't there out of effort. They were there out of convenience. Your silence disrupts that convenience. And disruption creates discomfort. And discomfort creates truth. And sometimes that truth is uncomfortable, but necessary. Because the truth is, some people don't deserve an explanation. Some people don't deserve a warning. Some people don't deserve your vulnerability. Some people don't deserve a soft landing. Some people don't deserve access to you at all. When you master silence, something new begins inside you. A different version of you takes over. A version with presence. A version with discipline. A version with boundaries. A version with self-compassion instead of self-sacrifice. A version who no longer leaks energy. A version who no longer reacts to everything. A version who no longer needs to prove anything. A version who moves with calm, controlled, deliberate energy. That version becomes magnetic. Not because he speaks loudly, but because he doesn't need to. His silence holds weight. His absence holds weight. His presence holds weight. His decisions hold weight. You become someone who doesn't need to say much because your energy speaks before your mouth ever does. Silence builds emotional muscle. It builds discipline. It builds restraint. It builds self-trust. It teaches you how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping into noise. It trains your mind to distinguish between what matters and what was simply triggering your ego. Silence is where you meet your truest self. Not the version shaped by external expectation, the version shaped by clarity. And that version no longer tolerates chaos disguised as connection. That version chooses wisely. That version moves differently. That version understands that peace is not found in the presence of others. It's found in the presence of yourself. And when you reach that level, something interesting happens. You start to see the world as it is, not as you wish it were. You see who's using you. You see who truly loves you. You see who respects you. You see who values your silence because they understand it, and who fears your silence because they lost control over you. You begin to sense people's intentions before they speak. You become less reactive, more observant, less emotional, more strategic, less available, more selective. That is Stoic maturity. Now let's go deeper. The people who get triggered by your silence are the ones who depended on your reaction. They needed you to argue. They needed you to explain. They needed you to defend. They needed you to lose your center so they could keep theirs. The moment you stop doing that, their entire dynamic collapses. They realize they can't use guilt to manipulate you. They realize they can't provoke you into breaking character. They realize they can't pull you into emotional traps anymore. Silence protects your soul from people who feed on chaos. But silence also protects your energy. Because every reaction is an investment. And most people don't realize how expensive reactions are. They cost clarity, they cost peace, they cost dignity, they cost self-control. Silence saves all of that. And here's the twist. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. Silence means you've learned the difference between caring and chasing. Silence means you've learned the difference between explaining yourself and respecting yourself. Silence means you've stopped expecting others to give you the truth. You now trust yourself to find it. Silence means you've grown past the phase of emotional survival into the phase of psychological strategy. Silence means you're evolving into someone powerful. This is why Stoics didn't respond impulsively. They mastered the inner pause, the sacred delay, the moment between emotion and action that determines your entire life. Most people act immediately when triggered. Stoics act deliberately, and silence is their testing ground. Silence is where you learn to sit with discomfort without letting discomfort make your decisions for you. Silence turns you from a reactor into an observer, and observers win wars without fighting them. The more silent you become, the clearer everything becomes. You stop romanticizing potential. You see patterns. You see truth. You see who deserves your energy and who deserves your silence. You start communicating through your behavior instead of your words. You walk away instead of arguing. You let people misunderstand you instead of defending. You protect your peace instead of proving your point. You choose dignity over drama every time. And once you reach that level of internal discipline, something remarkable happens. Your silence becomes louder than any explanation. People feel your absence. They rethink their behavior. They wonder why you stopped talking. They replay their actions in their head. They realize they lost access to a version of you they took for granted. Your silence becomes the lesson they didn't know they needed. And here's the final truth. Silence is not the end. Silence is the beginning of your rebirth. It's the moment you stop being drained by the wrong people and start growing into the person you were meant to be. Silence is the final boundary that tells the world, my peace is no longer negotiable. My dignity is no longer for sale. My attention is no longer freely given. My emotions are no longer accessible to people who misuse them. My energy is reserved for those who earn it. Silence is not your punishment. Silence is your evolution. And your evolution begins the moment you stop reacting to everything that tries to pull you backward. If this message resonated deeply with you, then you are in the middle of a powerful transformation. You are shedding old behaviors, old patterns, old instincts. You are choosing yourself in a way you never dared to before. and that deserves acknowledgement. Before you leave this video, before you step back into your world with this new understanding, I want you to take a moment and anchor this truth in your mind and in your heart. Type this affirmation in the comments as your declaration. My silence is my power, my boundary, and my final word. And if you want the next step, the deeper Stoic mindset that transforms you into someone unshakable, untouchable, and unreadable, then stay close, because this is only the beginning of who you are becoming.